The Galactic Council chambers had never seen such silence. Ambassador Zethkar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he processed the impossible data streaming across his neural interface. The holographic display showed a blue-green world spinning lazily in the void, its surface scarred by the remnants of what had once been the most feared predator species in known space. "Impossible," whispered Council Prime Vexthul, her crystalline form shimmering with disbelief. The Void Stalkers were apex predators from the death worlds of Kethmara. Nothing has ever survived their release. The human representative, Admiral Sarah Chen, sat calmly at the far end of the crescent-shaped table. Her species had only been part of the Galactic Council for 3 standard cycles, barely long enough to understand the basic protocols of interspecies diplomacy. Yet here she was, representing a species that had just accomplished the unthinkable. "Perhaps," Admiral Chen said quietly, "your data needs updating." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Around the table, representatives from 47 different species shifted uncomfortably. The Galactic Council had existed for over 10,000 cycles, maintaining peace through a delicate balance of power and mutual respect. The protocol of final resort had never been invoked against a Council member species before. Ambassador Zethkar's tentacles writhed as he accessed historical records. The Void Stalkers had been discovered on Kethmara during the early expansion period, when the Council was still young and reckless. The creatures were nightmares given flesh, standing 3 meters tall with chitinous black carapaces that could deflect energy weapons. Their 6 limbs ended in razor-sharp claws capable of tearing through reinforced titanium, and their elongated skulls housed a brain evolved purely for hunting and killing. The discovery had been accidental. A mining expedition to Kethmara's mineral-rich moon had disturbed something ancient in the planet's core. The Void Stalkers had emerged from hibernation with a hunger that had consumed every living thing on the planet within days. The Council's first response team had lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. It had taken the combined military might of 12 species and the sacrifice of an entire fleet to contain the creatures on their homeworld. Even then, they couldn't kill them all. The Void Stalkers adapted too quickly, learned too fast, and reproduced with terrifying efficiency. The Council had been forced to quarantine the entire system, posting permanent guard stations to ensure nothing ever escaped. That had been 8,000 cycles ago. Since then, the Void Stalkers had become the Council's ultimate deterrent. Any species that posed a threat to galactic peace faced the prospect of having a breeding pair of Void Stalkers released on their homeworld. It was a fate worse than orbital bombardment, worse than enslavement. It was extinction, pure and simple. The humans had been different from the start. They claimed to be from a death world called Earth, though their planet seemed paradoxically beautiful compared to the toxic hellscapes most species called home. They spoke of creatures called sharks and tigers and crocodiles, as if they were mere inconveniences rather than apex predators. The Council had initially dismissed these claims as typical newcomer boasting. The trouble had started when human explorers began venturing into restricted zones. Despite repeated warnings, human ships kept appearing in systems marked as off-limits, their crews claiming to be just looking around or checking for mineral deposits. The Council had grown increasingly frustrated with their apparent inability to follow basic safety protocols. Then came the incident at Proxima Virgil. A human research vessel had ignored quarantine warnings and landed on a planet infested with crystalline borers, creatures whose diamond-hard carapaces and acidic secretions had claimed the lives of thousands of Council personnel over the centuries. The expected distress call never came. Instead, 3 days later, the human ship had departed with its crew intact, and several crates of what they claimed were geological samples. Later, investigation revealed that the humans had somehow harvested the crystalline borers' carapaces after killing the creatures with primitive kinetic weapons. The geological samples turned out to be processed borer shells, which the humans intended to use in their industrial applications. The Council's xenobiologists had spent months trying to understand how a species could look at a creature that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia and see only raw materials. The final straw had come when human colonists established an unauthorized settlement in the Theta Draconis system, directly violating Council territorial agreements. Diplomatic protests had been met with cheerful apologies and promises to look into it, but the humans showed no signs of actually leaving. The settlement continued to grow, and human ships began regular supply runs to the system. Council Prime Vexthal had called for increasingly severe sanctions, but the humans seemed remarkably unconcerned about economic pressure. Their representatives continued to attend council sessions with the same polite demeanor, as if they were discussing weather patterns rather than potential interstellar war. The decision to invoke the protocol of final resort had not been made lightly. The council had debated for weeks before finally agreeing that the humans needed to understand the consequences of their actions. A single breeding pair of void stalkers would be released on Earth, in a remote area away from major population centers. The creatures would spread naturally, and within a few cycles, the human problem would solve itself. The transport ship had delivered its cargo to Earth's Australian continent, in a region the humans called the Outback. Council monitors had tracked the void stalkers' emergence from their containment pods, watched them take their first tentative steps on human soil, and then nothing. The communication blackout from Earth had lasted exactly 43 days. No distress calls, no pleas for help, no frantic evacuation requests. The monitoring stations had detected massive energy signatures consistent with high-level combat, but then even those had faded to silence. When contact was finally re-established, Admiral Chen had calmly requested an emergency council session to discuss pest control procedures and environmental cleanup protocols. The casual tone of her message had sent ripples of unease through the council chambers. Now, sitting in those same chambers, Admiral Chen reached into her briefcase and withdrew a small dark object. She placed it on the table with a soft click that seemed to echo in the absolute silence. It was a void stalker claw, perfectly preserved and mounted on a small wooden plaque. Beneath it, engraved in both human English and galactic standard, were the words, Australian Outback Safari, Exotic Game Hunting, Specimen Shamor 1. We need to talk, Admiral Chen said simply. Jake Morrison had been tracking wild boar in the Australian outback for 3 days when the stars fell from the sky. He was crouched behind a cluster of red rocks, his grandfather's hunting rifle steady in his weathered hands. When the brilliant streak of light carved its way across the dawn horizon, the object crashed somewhere beyond the next ridge, sending up a plume of dust and smoke that could be seen for kilometers. Most people would have turned back. The outback was dangerous enough without investigating mysterious crash sites, and Jake had learned long ago to respect the harsh landscape that had claimed so many unprepared souls. But curiosity had always been his weakness, and 47 years of living in the wilderness had taught him to recognize when something didn't belong. The crash site was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The cylindrical object was clearly artificial, constructed from some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, and a section of the hull had split open like a flower, revealing an interior that glowed with a sickly green phosphorescence. Jake approached cautiously, his rifle ready. Years of hunting had given him an instinct for danger, and every nerve in his body was screaming warnings. The air around the object felt wrong somehow, charged with an energy that made his skin crawl and his teeth ache. The first void stalker emerged just as Jake reached the edge of the impact crater. The creature moved like liquid shadow, its obsidian carapace gleaming in the morning sun. Jake had seen some terrifying animals in his lifetime, from saltwater crocodiles to funnel-web spiders, but nothing had prepared him for the sight of the alien predator. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, its elongated skull scanning the horizon with predatory intelligence. 6 limbs moved with perfect coordination, each ending in claws that looked like they could shred steel. Jake did what any sensible person would do when confronted with an unknown predator. He shot it. The bullet struck the creature's center mass, sparking off its natural armor but failing to penetrate. The void stalker's head snapped toward him with frightening speed, and Jake found himself staring into eyes that held no recognition of mercy or fear. They were the eyes of something that had never known anything but the hunt. The creature charged with inhuman speed, covering the 50 meters between them in seconds. Jake had time for one more shot before diving behind a boulder, as razor-sharp claws carved gouges in the stone where his head had been. The second bullet had found a gap in the creature's armor, drawing a stream of dark ichor. but it only seemed to enrage the beast further. Jake rolled to his feet and ran. Not in panic, but with the calculated desperation of someone who had survived in the wilderness by knowing when to fight and when to flee. The Voidstalker pursued him with relentless determination, its claws leaving deep scratches. In the hardpan earth with every stride, the chase might have ended badly if Jake hadn't led the creature directly into the path of a 16-foot saltwater crocodile. The massive reptile had been sunning itself beside a small billabong, perfectly camouflaged among the reeds and mud. The Voidstalker, focused entirely on its human prey, ran straight into the crocodile's territory without noticing the ancient predator until powerful jaws clamped down on its foreleg. What followed was a battle that would have impressed paleontologists across the galaxy. The Voidstalker's claws raked deep furrows in the crocodile's hide, but the reptile's bone-crushing bite had found a weak point in the alien's carapace. The two predators rolled and thrashed in the shallow water, each trying to gain the advantage through pure savagery. Jake watched from behind a termite mound, his rifle forgotten, as he witnessed something that challenged everything he thought he knew about Earth's ecosystem. The crocodile was winning. Millions of years of evolution had created a perfect killing machine, and the Voidstalker's alien advantages meant nothing against the primal fury of a territorial salty. The fight ended when the crocodile performed its infamous death roll, using its massive weight and leverage to snap the Voidstalker's spine with an audible crack. The alien predator went limp, its ichor turning the billabong water black. Jake approached carefully, his rifle ready in case either creature showed signs of life. The crocodile had retreated to the far side of the waterhole, apparently satisfied that the threat had been eliminated. It watched Jake with the patient indifference of an apex predator that had no need to prove its dominance. The dead Voidstalker was an impressive specimen, even in death. Jake had studied enough anatomy to recognize the creature's perfect design for killing. Every aspect of its form spoke to evolutionary optimization for predation. Its carapace was lighter than steel but harder than diamond. Its claws were monomolecular edges that could cut through virtually any material. Its musculature was designed for explosive speed and devastating power, but it had never encountered anything like a saltwater crocodile. Jake spent the next hour examining the crash site more thoroughly. The cylindrical container held two more creatures, both apparently in some kind of hibernation. Their life signs were weak but steady, suggesting they would awaken soon. Strange symbols on the container's interior included what looked like warning labels and species classification data. As Jake studied the alien text, trying to decipher its meaning, he heard the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors in the distance. Within minutes, 3 military aircraft appeared over the ridge, circling the crash site with obvious urgency. Jake recognized the markings of the Australian Defence Force, though he had no idea how they had located the site so quickly. The lead helicopter set down 50 meters away, disgorging a team of soldiers in full combat gear. Their leader, a stern-faced woman with colonel's insignia, approached Jake with obvious wariness. "Sir, I'm Colonel Sarah Reeves, ADF Special Operations. I need you to step away from the container and explain what happened here." Jake gestured toward the billabong where the dead Voidstalker lay half-submerged. "Well, Colonel, it seems we've got ourselves a bit of an alien invasion, though I reckon the local wildlife has already sorted out the welcoming committee." Colonel Reeves followed his gaze and stopped dead in her tracks. Her tactical training had prepared her for many scenarios, but finding a dead alien predator in the jaws of a crocodile had not been among them. "Sir," she said slowly, "I think we're going to need a much bigger briefing room." Behind them, one of the hibernating Voidstalkers stirred in its containment pod, beginning the slow process of awakening. Its first breath tasted of dust and fear and the strange scent of a world that had never known creatures like itself. It had no way of knowing that this world had been producing apex predators for 4 billion years, and that humans were merely the latest in a long line of species that had learned to turn the hunt into an art form. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been studying predator behavior for 15 years, but nothing in her education at Cambridge or her fieldwork in the Amazon had prepared her for the briefing she received at Pine Gap. The classified facility, hidden deep in the Australian desert, buzzed with activity as scientists and military personnel struggled to understand what they were dealing with. "The creatures are unlike anything in our fossil record," she explained to the assembled team. gesturing at the holographic display showing the Voidstalker's anatomy. Their bone density is 3 times that of any Earth predator. Their muscle fibers show signs of quantum enhancement, and their neural structure suggests intelligence comparable to our great apes. General Harrison, the head of Australia's military response team, leaned forward in his chair. "Doctor, with respect, I don't care about their intelligence. I need to know how to kill them." Helena exchanged glances with her colleague, Dr. James Okafor, a xenobiologist who had been hastily recruited from CSIRO. The government had assembled the best scientific minds they could find on 12 hours' notice, pulling experts from universities across the continent. "Sir," Dr. Okafor said carefully, "based on our analysis of the first specimen, conventional weapons will have limited effectiveness. The creature's carapace can deflect most small arms fire, and its regenerative capabilities suggest it can heal from wounds that would kill any Earth animal." "What about heavy weapons?" asked Major Patricia Wong, the leader of Australia's elite 2nd Commando Regiment. "Potentially effective, but we're talking about creatures that can move at speeds approaching 80 kilometers per hour through rough terrain. They're ambush predators with perfect camouflage capabilities and enhanced sensory organs that can detect prey from several kilometers away." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Australia's vast wilderness areas, which had always been a source of national pride, suddenly seemed like the perfect hunting ground for an alien apex predator. General Harrison stood and activated the main display screen. "Ladies and gentlemen, as of 0600 hours this morning, we have confirmed sightings of 3 additional Voidstalkers in the Pilbara region. The Prime Minister has authorized Operation Bushfire, a coordinated response to what we're classifying as an invasive alien species." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The government was treating this like a wildlife management problem. But these weren't cane toads or European rabbits. These were perfect killing machines from another world. "Sir," she said, raising her hand, "I strongly recommend we consult with indigenous communities in the affected areas. Aboriginal Australians have been dealing with dangerous predators for 60,000 years. Their traditional knowledge could be invaluable." Major Wong nodded approvingly. "The doctor's right. My unit has worked with Aboriginal trackers before. Some of them can read the land in ways that make our best technology look primitive." Within hours, the response team had expanded to include elders from several indigenous communities. Thomas Namatjira, a Arrernte man who had spent his life in the Central Desert, studied the Voidstalker remains with the calculating gaze of someone who understood predators on an instinctual level. "This thing," he said, running weathered fingers along the creature's carapace, "it's built for hunting in open country. See how its legs are positioned? It's designed for pursuit, not stealth. In the old stories, we have creatures like this. They hunt by fear by making prey run until they're exhausted." Dr. Vasquez took notes frantically. "How did your ancestors deal with such predators?" Thomas smiled grimly. "Same way we deal with all predators, Doctor. We became better hunters than they were." The first coordinated encounter with the Voidstalkers came 3 days later, when a military patrol encountered 2 of the creatures near Uluru. The soldiers, members of the elite Special Air Service Regiment, had been tracking the aliens using thermal imaging and motion sensors. Sergeant David Chen, a 3rd-generation Chinese-Australian who had served in Afghanistan, led his 6-man team through the Red Rock formations with practiced stealth. They had studied the creature's movement patterns, learned to recognize their territorial markers, and developed tactics specifically designed to exploit the aliens' apparent weaknesses. "Contact," whispered Corporal Jamie Stevens through the comm system. 2 targets, approximately 200 meters northwest of our position, moving toward the tourist camp. The Voidstalkers had been hunting methodically, following human scent trails with the patience of apex predators. Their alien intelligence had quickly learned to recognize human settlements as sources of abundant prey. What they hadn't learned was that humans were also capable of setting traps. Sergeant Chen's team had spent 2 days preparing the killing ground. Shaped charges were positioned along the creature's most likely approach routes. Motion sensors provided early warning of their movements. Most importantly, the team had coordinated with the local indigenous rangers, who understood the landscape in ways that no amount of military training could replicate. "This is Ranger Station Alpha," came Thomas Namatjira's voice over the radio. "The big one is moving through Devil's Canyon, heading straight for your position. The smaller one has circled around to the south, probably trying to flank you." The SAS soldiers had trained for this scenario, but facing the reality was different from any simulation. When the first Void Stalker emerged from behind a rock formation, its predatory grace was both beautiful and terrifying. It moved like liquid darkness, its 6 limbs carrying it across the uneven terrain with impossible speed. Sergeant Chen waited until the creature was within 50 meters before triggering the first shaped charge. The explosion shattered the morning silence, sending chunks of red rock cascading down the canyon walls. The Void Stalker staggered but remained upright, its carapace smoking but intact. "Bloody hell," muttered Corporal Stevens. "That should have killed an elephant." The creature's head turned toward their position with predatory focus. Chen could see its alien intelligence processing the situation, recognizing that it was facing organized resistance rather than simple prey. The Void Stalker's response was to emit a sound that no human throat could have produced. A harmonic shriek that seemed to vibrate through solid rock. "Second target responding to the call," reported Thomas over the radio. "It's coming fast, probably trying to coordinate an attack." What followed was a running battle through some of the most challenging terrain on Earth. The Void Stalkers demonstrated tactical intelligence that surpassed most. Earth predators, using the landscape to their advantage and coordinating their attacks with disturbing efficiency. But they were fighting on humanity's home ground, against soldiers who had learned warfare from a species that had been perfecting the art of killing for millions of years. The turning point came when Corporal Aboriginal Ranger Billy Patterson, working with the military team, led the creatures into a natural amphitheater where the traditional owners had once conducted sacred ceremonies. The rock formations created a natural funnel that limited the aliens' mobility while providing the human defenders with elevated firing positions. "Now we hunt them the old way," Thomas said grimly, raising a rifle that had been modified with traditional Aboriginal hunting techniques. The weapon bore symbols that had been used by his ancestors for thousands of years. Prayers for successful hunts and respect for the spirits of the prey. The Void Stalkers made their final charge with the desperate fury of apex predators who had suddenly found themselves becoming the hunted. They died as they had lived, as perfect killing machines, but they died nonetheless under the combined fire of human weapons guided by 60,000 years of accumulated hunting wisdom. As the dust settled, Sergeant Chen looked down at the alien corpses and felt a mixture of respect and grim satisfaction. These creatures had been the ultimate predators on their homeworld, but they had made one fatal mistake. They had chosen to hunt humans on Earth. News of the alien predators spread across the globe with the speed of modern communication, but the response was not what the Galactic Council had expected. Instead of panic and desperation, humanity's reaction was characterized by something the aliens had never encountered before: professional curiosity and systematic determination. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of Japan's Institute for Biological Warfare Research, received the classified data packets from Australia with the focused intensity that had made her one of the world's leading experts on dangerous species. Her laboratory in Tokyo had been studying the biological weapons potential of various Earth organisms for over a decade, but the Void Stalker specimens represented something entirely new. "Fascinating," she murmured, examining the electron microscope images of the alien creature's cellular structure. "The quantum enhancement of their muscle fibers suggests a level of bioengineering that surpasses anything we've achieved. But look at this." Her assistant, Dr. Hiroshi Yamamoto, leaned over her shoulder to study the display. "What am I looking at, Professor?" "Structural weakness. These creatures have been optimized for a specific environment, probably a world with different atmospheric composition and gravity. Their enhanced capabilities come at a cost. They're actually more vulnerable to certain types of biological warfare than Earth organisms." Within 6 hours, Dr. Tanaka's team had identified 3 different approaches for neutralizing the Void Stalkers, using modified versions of terrestrial pathogens. The creature's alien biology, while resistant to physical damage, had no natural defenses against Earth microorganisms that had evolved for 4 billion years. Meanwhile, in the mountains of Switzerland, Professor Klaus Weber was approaching the problem from an entirely different angle. As head of CERN's Theoretical Physics Division, he had been fascinated by the quantum signatures detected in the Void Stalker tissue samples. The creature's enhanced abilities appeared to be based on technology that human science was only beginning to understand. Hans, he called to his research partner. Look at these quantum field fluctuations. The creatures are generating localized distortions in space-time to enhance their physical capabilities. Dr. Hans Muller, a specialist in exotic particle physics, studied the data with growing excitement. If we can map the field generation patterns, we might be able to create interference waves that would neutralize their enhanced abilities. Better than that, Professor Weber said with a grin. We might be able to reverse engineer their biotechnology and improve our own understanding of quantum mechanics. By several decades, the European response to the Voidstalker threat was characteristically methodical. Rather than viewing the creatures as unstoppable predators, the scientific community saw them as an unprecedented opportunity to advance human knowledge. Teams of researchers across the continent began developing countermeasures that ranged from quantum disruption fields to bioengineered pathogens specifically designed to target alien physiology. In Russia, the approach was more direct. General Viktor Petrov, commander of the Siberian Military District, had fought in conflicts across 3 continents and possessed a practical understanding of warfare that complemented the scientist's theoretical knowledge. Comrade Doctor, he said to the Moscow Academy of Sciences representative, your creatures may be perfect predators, but they have never faced Siberian winter. We will see how well their enhanced biology functions at -40 degrees Celsius. The Russian military's response was to treat the Voidstalkers as they would any invasive species threatening the motherland. Specialized hunting teams were assembled from the ranks of soldiers who had grown up in the taiga, men and women who understood that survival in the wilderness required more than advanced technology. Colonel Anya Volkov, a veteran of the Spetsnaz forces, led the first Russian hunting expedition into the forests near Lake Baikal, where 2 Voidstalkers had been detected. Her team moved through the snow-covered landscape with the patience of apex predators, using traditional hunting techniques that had been passed down through generations of Russian soldiers. These creatures think they are the ultimate hunters, she told her men as they prepared their ambush. But they have never hunted in a place where the cold can kill you faster than any predator. Here we are the apex species. The Voidstalkers were ambushed during a blizzard that reduced visibility to less than 10 meters. The creatures' enhanced sensory capabilities, so effective in the Australian desert, were overwhelmed by the swirling snow and howling wind. Colonel Volkov's team used the environment itself as a weapon, leading the aliens into terrain where their superior speed and agility meant nothing. The creatures died in snowdrifts that would preserve their bodies until spring, their alien blood freezing before it could stain the pristine wilderness. The Russian hunters collected their specimens with the same methodical efficiency they had shown in eliminating countless human enemies over the years. In Africa, the response was shaped by tens of thousands of years of coexistence with some of Earth's most dangerous predators. Dr. Kwame Asante, a Ghanaian biologist who had studied African wildlife for 30 years, understood that the continent's ecosystems had produced both the most effective predators and the most effective prey species on the planet. These Voidstalkers, he explained to the assembled team of researchers and military personnel in Nairobi, they are impressive, but they lack something essential. They have never learned to coexist with their prey. The African approach to the alien threat drew on traditional hunting wisdom that had enabled human populations to thrive alongside lions, leopards, crocodiles, and countless other predators. Rather than viewing the Voidstalkers as unstoppable killing machines, African researchers recognized them as just another predator species that could be understood, predicted, and ultimately controlled. Teams of traditional hunters worked alongside modern military units, sharing knowledge that had been accumulated over millennia of successful coexistence with dangerous wildlife. The Voidstalkers found themselves facing opponents who understood predator behavior on an instinctual level, humans who could read subtle environmental cues and predict hunting patterns with uncanny accuracy. The most significant breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Maria Santos, a Brazilian ecologist studying Amazon rainforest ecosystems, made a discovery that changed everything. While examining tissue samples from a deceased Voidstalker, she noticed something that other researchers had missed. The creature's enhanced abilities require enormous amounts of energy, she explained during a video conference with research teams around the world. Their metabolism is incredibly inefficient by Earth standards. They're essentially burning through their energy reserves every time they use their quantum-enhanced capabilities. Dr. Okafor in Australia immediately understood the implications. They're sprinters, not marathon runners. If we can force them into extended combat situations, they'll exhaust themselves. More than that, Dr. Santos continued. Their digestive systems are adapted for the high-energy prey species on their homeworld. Earth's ecosystems can't provide the nutritional density they need to maintain their enhanced abilities long-term. The revelation transformed humanity's approach to the Void Stalker threat. Rather than viewing the creatures as perfect killing machines, researchers now understood them as magnificent but ultimately flawed predators that were fighting a losing battle against an alien environment. Within weeks, coordinated hunting expeditions were being conducted on every continent. The operations combined cutting-edge military technology with traditional hunting wisdom, quantum physics with indigenous knowledge, modern medicine with ancient understanding of predator behavior. The Void Stalkers, for all their evolutionary perfection, had never encountered anything like the species they were trying to hunt. They had been designed to be the ultimate predators on their homeworld, but they had made the mistake of trying to hunt humans on Earth. As the last confirmed Void Stalker was tracked down in the Canadian wilderness, Admiral Sarah Chen prepared her report for the Galactic Council. The document would serve as humanity's formal response to what the aliens had intended as an extinction-level threat. She smiled grimly as she typed the final words. Pest control operation completed. Request permission to examine the Void Stalker homeworld for additional specimens. Our research teams are very interested in studying their natural habitat. The research facility on Titan had been humanity's most ambitious scientific project before the Void Stalker incident. Now, as Dr. Rebecca Harrison walked through its laboratories, she marveled at how quickly the station had been repurposed to serve an entirely different mission. What had once been dedicated to studying Saturn's moons was now the staging ground for humanity's first interstellar hunting expedition. The quantum drive modifications are complete, reported Dr. Singh, the project's chief engineer. We can reach the Kethmara system in approximately 6 weeks, assuming the Galactic Council's star charts are accurate. Dr. Harrison nodded as she reviewed the mission parameters. The expedition ship Persistence had been designed for deep space exploration, but extensive modifications had transformed it into something unprecedented. A vessel specifically equipped for hunting alien apex predators in their natural habitat. What's the status of our biological containment systems? She asked. Triple redundancy on all isolation protocols, Dr. Singh replied. We've learned from the Council's mistakes. If we encounter any organisms on Kethmara that could pose a threat to Earth's ecosystem, we'll be ready. The decision to mount an expedition to the Void Stalker homeworld had not been made lightly. After the successful elimination of the creatures on Earth, humanity's scientific community had been unanimous in their desire to study the aliens in their natural environment. The knowledge gained could advance human understanding of evolutionary biology, quantum enhancement, and predator-prey dynamics by centuries. More importantly, the mission would send a clear message to the Galactic Council. Humanity was not content to merely survive alien aggression. They intended to understand it, master it, and ultimately turn it to their advantage. The expedition team represented the best of human scientific and military expertise. Dr. Harrison, a xenobiologist with extensive fieldwork experience in Earth's most dangerous environments, would lead the research components. Colonel Marcus Torres, a veteran of humanity's most challenging military operations, commanded the security detail. Together, they represented a combination of intellectual curiosity and tactical expertise that the galaxy had never seen before. Dr. Harrison called Dr. Yuki Tanaka from across the laboratory. You need to see this. The Japanese researcher had been studying the quantum field generators that they had reverse-engineered from Void Stalker tissue samples. Her work had been instrumental in developing the countermeasures that made the hunting expedition possible. We've successfully replicated the aliens' enhancement fields, she explained, gesturing to a complex array of crystalline structures. Not only can we neutralize their advantages, we can potentially enhance our own physical capabilities to match theirs. Dr. Harrison studied the device with fascination. Are you saying we could become as dangerous as the Void Stalkers? More dangerous, Dr. Tanaka said with a predatory smile. We have something they lack. the ability to improve our technology continuously. They evolved to be perfect predators, but evolution is slow. Human innovation is exponential. The Persistence departed Earth orbit on a Tuesday morning, carrying 47 scientists, 28 military personnel, and enough equipment to establish a temporary research station on an alien world. The ship's quantum drives, originally based on Galactic Council technology, had been enhanced with improvements derived from Voidstalker biotechnology. As Earth fell away behind them, Dr. Harrison reflected on the audacious nature of their mission. 6 months ago, humanity had been a junior member of the Galactic Council, struggling to understand their place in a universe filled with advanced civilizations. Now they were embarking on a journey that would take them to one of the most dangerous worlds in known space, not as victims but as apex predators in their own right. The voyage to Kethmara provided ample time for the expedition team to prepare for what they might encounter. The ship's laboratories buzzed with activity as researchers developed specialized equipment for studying alien life forms in extreme environments. Military personnel trained with weapon systems that combined human engineering with quantum enhancement technology. Dr. Chen Wei, the expedition's atmospheric specialist, worked closely with Colonel Torres to develop protocols for operating in Kethmara's hostile environment. The planet's atmosphere contained trace amounts of compounds that were toxic to most known life forms, and its gravity was 30% higher than Earth standard. The Voidstalkers evolved in this environment, Dr. Chen explained during a briefing session. Everything about their physiology is adapted for these conditions. We'll need to be extremely careful not to underestimate the challenges we'll face. Colonel Torres nodded grimly. My people have trained in every hostile environment Earth can offer, Doctor, but you're right. This is going to test us in ways we've never experienced before. The ship's AI, enhanced with decision-making algorithms based on human hunting strategies, continuously analyzed the available data about Kethmara's ecosystem. What emerged was a picture of a world where evolutionary pressure had created creatures of almost unimaginable lethality. The Voidstalkers weren't even the apex predators on their homeworld, reported Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the expedition's evolutionary biologist. According to the Galactic Council's archives, they were mid-level hunters. The real apex predators on Kethmara are creatures called shadow weavers, which the Council has never successfully studied. The implications sent a thrill of anticipation through the research team. If humanity could study and understand creatures that had made the Voidstalkers look like prey animals, the advancement in their knowledge would be unprecedented. As the Persistence approached the Kethmara system, long-range sensors began detecting signs of life on the planet's surface. The readings were unlike anything in Earth's databases, suggesting organisms with energy signatures that defied conventional understanding of biology. Contact, announced Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the sensor station. Multiple large organisms moving across the planet's primary continent. Energy readings suggest they're using some form of quantum enhancement similar to the Voidstalkers, but on a much larger scale. Dr. Harrison felt her pulse quicken. How much larger? Based on the energy signatures, we're looking at creatures that could be 50 to 100 times the mass of a Voidstalker. And there are hundreds of them. The expedition team gathered on the bridge as Kethmara grew larger in the forward viewport. The planet was beautiful in an alien way, its surface covered with crystalline formations that caught and refracted the light of its binary stars. But beauty on alien worlds, as humanity had learned, often masked deadly realities. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Torres announced over the ship's communication system, we are about to become the first human beings to set foot on a death world that has challenged the Galactic Council for 8,000 years. Our mission is to study the apex predators that call this place home, understand their capabilities, and return to Earth with knowledge that will advance our species by centuries. He paused, looking out at the alien landscape below them. But remember, we're not here as tourists or as prey. We're here as representatives of a species that has spent 4 billion years perfecting the art of survival. These creatures may be impressive, but they've never encountered anything like us. Dr. Harrison activated the ship's external sensors and began the first detailed scans of Kethmara's surface. The readings were extraordinary. The planet teemed with life forms that existed in a constant state of predation and adaptation. Evolution had been accelerated by the harsh conditions, creating an ecosystem where only the most efficient killers could survive. But as she studied the data, Dr. Harrison began to smile. The creatures of Kethmara were indeed formidable, but they all shared one crucial weakness. They had evolved in isolation, never encountering the kind of adaptive intelligence that characterized human civilization. "Colonel Torres," she said, "I recommend we begin with a small scouting mission to the surface. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we commit to a full research operation." "Agreed," Torres replied. "But doctor, remember what we learned on Earth? These creatures are dangerous, but they're not invincible. We've already proven that human ingenuity can overcome alien evolution." As the Persistence established orbit around Kethmara, its crew prepared for the greatest hunting expedition in human history. They were no longer the prey species that the Galactic Council had tried to eliminate. They had become something far more dangerous, humans with the knowledge and tools to hunt apex predators across the galaxy. The tables, as they said on Earth, had turned. The first human footsteps on Kethmara left impressions in crystalline sand that sparkled like crushed diamonds under the alien binary suns. Dr. Rebecca Harrison stood at the edge of the landing zone, her enhanced environmental suit registering atmospheric readings that would have been lethal to unprotected human life. But the suit itself was a marvel of engineering that combined human technology with quantum enhancements reverse engineered from Void Stalker biology. Atmospheric composition confirmed. "As hostile but manageable," she reported to the Persistence. "Through her suit's communication system, gravity is within acceptable parameters for enhanced human operation." Behind her, Colonel Torres's advanced team established a defensive perimeter, using weapons that no military force in galactic history had ever deployed. The quantum-enhanced rifles could punch through Void Stalker carapaces like paper, while their targeting systems incorporated predator tracking algorithms developed from studying Earth's most efficient hunters. The landscape of Kethmara was breathtaking and terrifying in equal measure. Towering crystal formations stretched toward the alien sky like the bones of ancient gods, while bioluminescent flora cast shifting patterns of light across the jagged terrain. Everything about the environment spoke to the evolutionary pressure that had created the galaxy's most feared predators. "Movement detected," announced Sergeant Lisa Park, the team's tracker specialist. "Large organism approaching from the crystal forest, approximately 2 kilometers northeast of our position." Dr. Harrison activated her suit's enhanced sensors and immediately understood why the Galactic Council had never successfully studied this world. The creature moving toward them registered energy signatures that dwarfed anything they had encountered on Earth. It was a shadow weaver. "One of Kethmara's true apex predators." "Jesus Christ," whispered Private David Kim through the communication channel. "That thing is the size of a blue whale." The shadow weaver emerged from the crystal formations like a living nightmare. Its body was translucent, allowing them to see the complex quantum field generators that pulsed like alien hearts throughout its form. 6 massive limbs, each ending in what looked like miniature black holes, carried the creature across the uneven terrain with impossible grace. "It's beautiful," Dr. Harrison breathed, her scientific mind racing to catalog the creature's adaptations. "Look at the way it manipulates local space-time to enhance its movement. It's not just using quantum enhancement, it's actually bending reality around itself." Colonel Torres was less impressed by the creature's aesthetic qualities. "Can we kill it?" "Unknown," replied Dr. Tanaka through the communication link from the ship. "The creature's quantum field is unlike anything we've encountered. Our weapons might be effective, but we won't know until we test them." The Shadow Weaver approached with the confidence of an apex predator that had never encountered serious resistance. Its sensory organs, visible as glowing nodes along its translucent hide, scanned the human landing party with obvious curiosity. The creature had probably never seen anything like them before. "It's studying us," Dr. Harrison realized. "This isn't mindless predation, it's intelligent reconnaissance." The attack, when it came, was unlike anything the human team had experienced. The Shadow Weaver didn't charge or leap. Instead, it seemed to fold space around itself, appearing directly in front of Sergeant Park before anyone could react. One of its reality-distorting appendages swept toward her with the speed of thought. Park's enhanced reflexes, boosted by the quantum field generators in her suit, allowed her to dodge an attack that would have bisected her predecessor. She rolled to the side and opened fire with her quantum rifle, sending streams of enhanced particles toward the creature's center mass. The round struck the Shadow Weaver's quantum field and stopped. They hung suspended in distorted space around the creature like deadly ornaments, held motionless by gravitational manipulation that defied human understanding of physics. "Conventional weapons are ineffective," reported Colonel Torres, his voice maintaining professional calm, despite the impossible situation unfolding around him. Switching to experimental protocols. The human team scattered across the landing zone with tactical precision that had been perfected through countless training exercises. But this was no simulation, and their opponent was a creature that had evolved specifically to hunt other apex predators. Dr. Harrison found herself separated from the main group, crouched behind a cluster of crystal formations as the Shadow Weaver demonstrated hunting abilities that challenged everything she thought she knew about predator behavior. The creature moved through space like a living distortion, appearing and disappearing with casual disregard for the laws of physics. "Dr. Tanaka," she called through her suit's communication system, "we need the quantum disruption field now." "Activating experimental countermeasures," came the reply from the ship. "Fair warning, Rebecca. We've never tested this against a creature of this magnitude." The quantum disruption field generators, mounted on the expedition team's equipment packs, came online with a harmonic whine that seemed to resonate through the planet's crystal formations. The effect on the Shadow Weaver was immediate and dramatic. The creature's reality-distorting abilities faltered, its translucent form becoming more solid as the artificial quantum field interference disrupted its natural enhancements. For the first time in its evolutionary history, the apex predator of Kethmara found itself facing opponents who could neutralize its primary advantages. "Now we're fighting on equal terms," Colonel Torres announced, his team converging on the disoriented creature with weapons designed to exploit the weaknesses they had discovered in Voidstalker biology. What followed was a battle that would have been impossible anywhere else in the galaxy. Human soldiers, enhanced with alien biotechnology and armed with weapons that combined the best of both species' innovations, engaged an apex predator that had never known defeat in millions of years of evolution. The Shadow Weaver fought with the desperate fury of a creature experiencing vulnerability for the first time. Its 6 appendages swept through the air with enough force to shatter the crystal formations, while its remaining quantum abilities created localized distortions that made accurate targeting nearly impossible. But the humans adapted with the flexibility that had characterized their species throughout its evolutionary history. They used the crystalline terrain to their advantage, coordinating their attacks with tactical precision that the creature had never encountered. Most importantly, they learned from each exchange, adjusting their strategies in real time as they gathered data about their opponent's capabilities. The turning point came when Dr. Harrison noticed a pattern in the creature's quantum field fluctuations. "Its enhancement generators are overheating," she called to the team. "The disruption field is forcing it to work harder to maintain its abilities. If we can keep the pressure on, it will exhaust itself." The final assault was a masterpiece of coordinated human warfare. The team moved with the synchronized precision of pack hunters, each member playing a specific role in the takedown of their massive prey. Colonel Torres's tactical experience, combined with Dr. Harrison's scientific analysis and the quantum-enhanced capabilities of their equipment, created a hunting efficiency that no single species could have achieved. The Shadow Weaver collapsed with a sound like reality tearing, its massive form creating a crater in the crystalline sand. As its quantum field generators shut down one by one, the creature became fully visible for the first time, revealing anatomy that was both alien and strangely beautiful. "Specimen acquired," Dr. Harrison reported to the ship, her voice barely containing her excitement. "We've successfully hunted and killed a creature that the Galactic Council considered impossible to study." As the team began the process of collecting samples and documenting their find, Dr. Harrison realized that they had accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. They had proven that human ingenuity, enhanced with alien technology and guided by millions of years of predatory evolution, could overcome any challenge the universe might present. "Colonel," she said, looking out across the alien landscape, "I recommend we extend our mission timeline. If Kethmara has more creatures like this, our research could revolutionize everything we understand about apex predation." Torres smiled grimly as he watched his team efficiently process their kill with the same methodical precision they would use on any hunting expedition. "Doctor, I think we're going to need a bigger trophy room." Behind them, the crystal formations of Kethmara caught the light of the binary suns, casting rainbow patterns across the first human kill site on a death world that had challenged the galaxy for millennia. The hunters from Earth had arrived, and they were just getting started. 3 months after the first human expedition to Kethmara, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the assembled Galactic Council with a datapad containing information that would reshape the political landscape of known space. Behind her, a holographic display showed footage from humanity's hunting expeditions across 17 different death worlds, each one previously considered too dangerous for Council exploration. "Honored Council members," she began, her voice carrying the quiet confidence of a species that had discovered its true place in the galactic order. "I present the final report on human response to the Void Stalker deployment." The silence in the council chambers was absolute. Representatives from 47 species watched in stunned fascination as the holographic display showed human hunting teams systematically cataloging and eliminating apex predators that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Ambassador Zethkar's tentacles writhed nervously as he processed the impossible data. "Admiral Chen, are you claiming that your species has successfully hunted creatures on Zirion Prime?" The Council lost 3 entire survey fleets to that world's predator species. Admiral Chen smiled with the expression of someone sharing particularly satisfying news. "The crystalline devourers of Zirion Prime have been completely eliminated from the planet's northern continent. Our xenobiologists have classified them as an invasive species that was disrupting the planet's natural ecosystem. We're currently working with local environmental groups to restore the balance." The display shifted to show human researchers working alongside alien environmentalists, using advanced biotechnology to repair damage that had been considered irreversible for thousands of years. The images were impossible to reconcile with the Council's understanding of how apex predators functioned in galactic ecosystems. Council Prime Vexthul leaned forward, her crystalline form shimmering with disbelief. "The Void Stalkers were our ultimate deterrent. They were perfect killing machines evolved on one of the most dangerous worlds in known space. How did your species not only survive their deployment, but completely eliminate them?" "With respect, Council Prime," Admiral Chen replied, "your perfect killing machines had never encountered a species that evolved specifically to outcompete other predators. Humans didn't just survive on Earth. We systematically eliminated or domesticated every apex predator on the planet. The Void Stalkers were impressive, but they were not prepared for opponents who had spent 4 billion years perfecting the art of turning hunters into prey." The holographic display showed a montage of human achievements that would have been considered fantasy just months earlier. Human hunting teams had successfully eliminated apex predators on 12 different death worlds. Human scientists had reverse-engineered alien biotechnology to enhance their own capabilities. Human military forces had established permanent research stations in systems that the Council had declared eternally off-limits. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as humanity's chief xenobiologist, stepped forward to address the assembled aliens. "Honored representatives, we've discovered something remarkable during our research expeditions. The creatures you've feared for millennia are actually crucial components of galactic biodiversity. The Void Stalkers, Shadow Weavers, and other apex predators serve important ecological functions that have been disrupted by your policy of avoidance and containment." The implications rippled through the council chambers like a shockwave. For 10,000 years, galactic civilization had been shaped by fear of apex predators from death worlds. Entire star systems had been quarantined. Technological development had been constrained by the need to avoid creatures that might pose existential threats. Now humanity was suggesting that these creatures were not unstoppable engines of destruction, but rather misunderstood components of complex ecological systems. "We propose a new approach to galactic wildlife management," Admiral Chen continued. "Rather than cowering in fear of apex predators, we suggest establishing a systematic program to study, understand, and when necessary, relocate these species to environments where they can fulfill their natural ecological roles without threatening civilian populations." Ambassador, Feltar of the Hegemony Coalition raised a scaled appendage. "Admiral, with respect to your species' remarkable achievements, you're suggesting that the Council abandoned 10 millennia of successful containment policies based on 3 months of human research?" "Not abandon," Dr. Vasquez replied, "evolve. Your containment policies worked because you lacked the tools and knowledge to interact safely with apex predators. We're offering to share both. The display showed detailed schematics for quantum field disruptors, enhanced biological armor, and predictive hunting algorithms that had been developed during humanity's Death World expeditions. Each technology represented advances that could revolutionize how galactic civilization approached dangerous environments. More importantly, Admiral Chen added, we're offering to establish a new council department dedicated to apex predator research and management. Human teams would take responsibility for studying and controlling dangerous species, while sharing all discoveries with member civilizations. The political implications were staggering. Humanity was essentially offering to become the Council's apex predator specialists, taking on responsibilities that no other species had been willing or able to handle. It was a proposal that would elevate human status from junior members to essential partners in galactic governance. Council Prime. Vexthal's form flickered with the complex harmonics that indicated deep consideration. Admiral Chen, your proposal would fundamentally alter the balance of power within the Council. Are you prepared for the responsibilities that would accompany such authority? Council Prime, Admiral Chen replied. My species has been preparing for these responsibilities for 4 billion years. We evolved on a death world surrounded by apex predators. We learned to hunt pack predators like wolves, ambush predators like tigers, and persistence predators like hyenas. We domesticated predators when it served our purposes and eliminated them when it didn't. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed images of human cities coexisting with carefully managed populations of creatures that had once been apex predators. We've already proven that we can successfully manage dangerous species while maintaining ecological balance. We're simply offering to extend that expertise to the galactic community. The debate that followed would reshape galactic politics for generations. Some council members argued that humanity's rapid rise to prominence threatened the traditional balance of power. Others contended that human expertise in apex predator management was too valuable to ignore. Ambassador Zethkar found himself in the unusual position of supporting the human proposal. Fellow council members, he said, his tentacles gesturing toward the display data, we cannot ignore the evidence before us. In 3 months, humanity has accomplished more in the field of apex predator research than the Council has achieved in 10,000 years. The final vote was closer than expected, but humanity's proposal was approved by a narrow margin. The new Department of Apex Predator Research and Management would be headquartered on Earth, with human teams responsible for investigating and controlling dangerous species throughout Council space. As the Council session concluded, Admiral Chen reflected on how dramatically the situation had changed. 6 months earlier, humanity had been a junior species struggling to understand its place in galactic civilization. Now they were positioned to become one of the most influential forces in Council politics. Admiral, said Dr. Vasquez as they prepared to leave the Council chambers, do you think we've bitten off more than we can chew? Managing apex predators across the entire galaxy is going to be an enormous responsibility. Admiral Chen smiled as she looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's transparent dome. Doctor, my species spent millions of years learning to hunt everything from mammoths to saber-toothed cats. We've survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and countless other extinction events. I think we can handle a few more apex predators. Behind them, the Galactic Council began the complex process of adapting to a new reality. For the first time in their 10,000-year history, they had encountered a species that viewed apex predators not as existential threats, but as manageable challenges. The age of humanity had begun, not through conquest or technology, but through the simple recognition that sometimes the best way to deal with apex predators is to become a better one yourself. As the human delegation departed for Earth, carrying with them the authority to reshape how galactic civilization approached its greatest fears, one question remained unanswered in the Council chambers. What other impossible challenges might humanity decide to tackle next? The galaxy, they realized with a mixture of anticipation and unease, was about to find out.